This is the Parenting Reboot, where we talk about all things related to parenting, technology, education, and raising resilient little children. And in today's episode, I'm joined by a seasoned educational professional. Meet Neha Gujar. She is a Teach for India program partner, and she has been working with social entrepreneurs and educators across the country to bring about change in the education system at a grassroots level. She, throughout her career, has been working on creating inclusive and deep learning environments for all sorts of communities, especially government schools, marginalized groups, shelter homes, and street children. Now, I know Neha personally too because we went to college together. So, this is a very exciting opportunity for me to bring her on the show. Thank you so much, Neha, for joining and welcome.
Thank you, Deepa, for inviting me and for such a lovely introduction. Yeah, very happy to be here, and I've been following the podcast. Want to share that the content that you're bringing into the world is so important. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
No, thank you. I have so much to learn from you. But like I mentioned, since I've known Neha, she has been so interested in the education space and in the childcare space, even before we started college, I want to say. So tell us a bit more about your story, Neha. Like, what attracted you to, you know, get into a full-time career in the education space, and that too in such a niche manner, right? So tell me all about it.
I think it just comes from how life shaped out to be since childhood and the values and stories that I was raised with. So I come from a defense background. My father was in the Indian Navy. And my mother has been a homemaker, but they had a very contrasting upbringing for themselves, right? So I root what I do and where I come from to my parents. So my father belongs to a small village in Rajasthan and Jhalawar district called Asnavar, and he was born into a family which was in abject poverty.
Mm.
He had seven siblings. His parents were landless laborers, and they all used to live like in a simple mud brick house. And education was the only tool that got my father out of poverty, and not just him, the entire family out of poverty. Right. So now I can say with a lot of joy that the entire all the seven siblings are doing something great for themselves, and their children are like in wonderful professions as well, right? So what I grew up with was education is what can change the trajectory of not just a person, but the entire
Mm.
family. And on the contrary, my mother received a really good education, and I think we were blessed to receive it as conditioning from her. So she raised me with a lot of values of finding my own independence, following my passion, exploring beyond the academic field
Mm.
of like I really liked studying and I still do, but besides that, like just exploring sports, arts, and a lot of other things, really building my own identity and identifying what I am passionate about and making that my career and life goal, not what is respectable and chased and sought out in the world outside. And I'm very happy that that happened to me for the life that I'm leading today, right? So
Mm.
I was brought up with this journey of my father throughout, and very early on in school, I decided that if my family got the privilege of getting educated and coming out of poverty, I want to dedicate my life to make this happen for many families in the country and in the world.
So inspiring, and that is so resilient of you as well as your family to have followed through that passion of yours, what took shape very early on in your childhood. You decided to stick through with it, like, because a lot of us, when we come to college or post college, we have these misty eyed dreamy notions of the world, of where the world is headed, and then we quickly change paths, right? And you're somebody I know who has stuck to that path. So, Tia, tell us a bit more about your work with Teach for India, right? You've spent over a decade, I believe, in the education sector, education space now in India. So paint us a picture about what you have seen in that decade, especially comparing it between urban and rural education, and what is defined as a good education perhaps in the country now.
So I started working in a shelter home. That was my first exposure to the education space and teaching through
Mhm.
another NGO before Teach for India. And teaching in that shelter home just connected me to this purpose of life that I'm talking about, that I
Hmm.
shared about a few minutes ago. And that's where my journey started. After that, I loved the work so much and I found so much value in it that by the time I was finishing college, I was working with 4 different NGOs and all into education and empowering the youth. Teach for India's journey started by me being stationed in a government school where children
Mhm.
from the slums of Mumbai used to come. It was a free school, public school for education for them, and I was their grade 5 and grade 6 teacher. It's been 10 years, and now most of them are in their final year of college and
Wow.
working parallelly and earning a living for their families alongside pursuing their education, right? So, my journey started as a teacher, and I think each child's journey in that class of 45 children was so unique that it taught me so much about the importance of education in their life beyond what I had walked in. So, my learning about what is needed in the education sector happened with those 45 children in the classroom because each one of them had a very unique life of their own, very different backgrounds and very different passions and interests as well, right? So, how do you sort of like create one learning experience that caters to such diverse backgrounds and personalities in a classroom? And that's where my journey began, really applying things that I had learned in Teach for India, which was let's not just focus on knowledge and things that are in the textbook or that one can research and bring to the classroom, but build skills in the children, build values in the children. And if they are equipped with the right skills and values, they will be able to sort of take the learning in towards their passion and what they want to do in life as well. So started off there. Uh, saw immense growth happening in their own learning, them making their own career choices, setting their own goals for themselves for what they want to do in the future as well. Saw a lot of resilience, like the children had to walk for kilometers in a city like Mumbai to reach school. How do I make their time worth it in the school, in the classroom? They're going to spend key years of their life with me, and how do I make that valuable for them? And today when I talk to them, I just met a few of them yesterday, and the skills of communication, the skill of how do I take an opportunity and bring my own creative element to it to really thrive in my workspace, but also make sure that the environment around me is taking care of my well-being, right? So
Hmm.
the choice that they are instilled with, doing the right work, giving back to their family and staying really rooted in that, in those values, is something that makes me really happy. And constantly, like, they are asking me, give us feedback on how we can be better.
Wow, that is very mature if you think about it, right? And I hate to interject. I want to pull several pods here, but for listeners who are probably not fully aware of what Teach for India or the Teach for India model is, because you mentioned that you were teaching grade 5 and 6. I want to say this runs parallelly with or as a part or embedded as a part of existing public school systems within, India, right? Like so you have formal education where you have trained teachers who are doing these grades, but aside or on top of that, Teach for India volunteers or teachers go on ground to hyper personalize education. Is that the correct way to put it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can share a little background of Teach for India. So, Teach for India runs a fellowship program, and the basic eligibility criteria for that is anyone who's a graduate need not be a trained teacher as such,
Hmm.
because Teach for India takes care of the training, and who believes that they want to create change in the society through teaching. So, the fellow is placed as a full time teacher in an existing
Mhm.
school system, and they teach the school curriculum, whatever is being given by the state board, but also bring in like skills, value based learning, and how they have been trained by Teach for India to deliver that content as well into the classroom. So, sort of like giving, not just making the fellow or the teacher a person who delivers in the classroom, but is truly a designer for what should be brought to this particular classroom, this particular context is what they do over a period of 2 years. And the beauty of it is doing it in an existing system also helps them learn about what is working and what isn't working in the system for making some children successful and not being able to make certain children successful in our system as well. So they like the fellow also navigates several challenges around the innovations they want to bring in the classroom and what the system may demand for them from them, and sometimes also feeling the pull for how do I expand and scale what I'm doing in one classroom to the rest of the school as well. And lastly, like over the course of the 2 years, the fellows also discovering what would be my long term, route to create change in the system beyond teaching. Do I want to continue teaching? Do I want to design curriculum? Do I want to work in partnership with the government to sort of scale the innovation that I've already tried in my classroom? It's been running for the last 15 years, the fellowship. And
Mhm.
the program that I closely work with, which is the TFIX program, is helping different NGOs across the country design similar fellowship model like Teach for India in their own context and bring youth from the local community to be these change makers, fellows, teachers, whatever you would like to call them, into the education system. Because unfortunately,
Hmm.
India does not see education sector as a very ambitious sector. I mean, for women, yes, teaching is a great profession, mostly because they will be able to manage work and their family at the same time, unfortunately. I mean, there are certainly exceptions in this, but most people come with that thought that if I couldn't make it in any other sector, then I can probably become a teacher, which is not easy to get into, but seems like the last resort option of youth. And Teach for India has been trying to change that and make education sector equally ambitious as any other sector, working for the country, making that aspiring and important for youth in the country.
Absolutely. And which makes me wonder, is there a shortage of teachers in India? Like, is there like across the different school systems, be it public, semi-private, and private, is there a shortage of teachers in general across India?
Absolutely. I think unemployment majorly still does exist. There is lack of teachers in the school system. I mean, through the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan policy, what we've been able to ensure is reach with primary education to every village, right? Like there, you will find a school in different conditions, of course. Some with great infrastructure, some that needs work, but there are schools accessible to children. However, when you enter those schools, you will see one teacher working with multi grade classrooms and also taking care of running the entire operations of a school system single handedly. So they are teaching, they're also the cleaners, they're also the administration person, they're managing
Wow.
everything on their own. So certainly there is shortage of teachers in the country, but I think the government system's also kind of working on how to bring more quality teachers into the system, which is why they've been making the process more and more rigorous to make that entry happen.
Hmm.
And even with like a B.Ed degree or bachelor's in education degree, fortunately, youth are not able to crack that eligibility criteria set by the government in most systems. So that is one of the reasons why there is a shortage. And then, of course, if you talk about like remote parts of the country, people don't want to go there and work, right?
Hmm.
So there are teachers, but they don't want to go to those schools. So shortage of teachers continues to exist in some of our most marginalized communities and remote areas.
My God. Like the world is talking about, are we using a lot of technology with kids, with education, where at a grassroots level, the basic problems are yet to be addressed, right? Like you're talking about this gap in operational and financial and people, manpower related issues, the real issues that are not allowing children and families to access education at par with what you see in urban centers, right? So,
Yeah. And the irony of this is there is unemployment. There are youth who are educated and they don't have a job, but at the same time, either they don't find teaching aspiring and so they don't want to take it up, or they're not able to like clear some of these exams which would make them eligible to be a teacher.
so where does your work fit in into all of this, Neha? Like, how are you trying to, at the scale you can, close that gap, or even try to address some of these issues? Tell us some of your experiences of working with marginalized communities, or like examples of schools that you've worked with in the past.
Yeah, yeah. So we believe in Teach for India and TFIX that the solution lies in bringing local youth as teachers into the system to work for their own village, to work for the children of their own village, right? Like, why does a teacher have to travel miles and kilometers to reach that like rural place or that remote place when there are so many youth in the community already who can
Hmm.
teach, who will be able to make that connection for children in that village as well. Why not empower them? The challenge lies in either them not finding the work aspiring or they don't have the right skills to be able to teach. So we're also working on bridging that skill gap for the local youth to make teaching aspiring and also to be able to bring the right skills to them so that they're able to deliver the education that is required. I mean, the school system in India, especially in rural areas, is still very limited to children sitting for 4 hours and listening to their teacher lecture them, talk at them, writing something on the board, and the children are copying it, right? Like nothing has changed in that system. While the job world, whether it's teaching
Hmm.
or any other career, now requires the skills of communication, confidence. So when I meet these youth from across the country, they lack confidence. They can't speak fluently in any language, even in their own mother tongue. They're not very confident to come up and speak.
Hmm.
And what I've seen transform is, even if I'm taking like a 2 day workshop with them where we are learning together and I create a space for them to interact, I've seen people transform in their confidence within those 2 days, right? So
Hmm.
if possible, it is in them. It's just that they've never got the opportunity to be able to do it. And that's what we're trying to change. And we're also at the same time thinking about how do we bring this early on into the system.
Hmm.
So the children that we are now educating, who are now a part of the education system, are not seeing the same gaps when they grow up. So how do we create classrooms where we are seeing children talk? Like
Hmm.
sitting quietly and learning and obeying the teacher is not going to get us anywhere in the future. And if I have to talk about children as citizens of today, right? Like we're constantly in our society raising children to be something in the future. But we also need to realize that they are living beings today. Why does every decision and every space have to be created thinking about what they're going to do 10 years down the line?
Hmm.
Is the child happy and able to talk, express right now how they are feeling? Right? Is there a space for them to share that this morning when I left from my house, I saw my parents fighting, or I did not have anyone to give me food today, so I am hungry?
Hmm.
Right now, if a teacher enters the classroom and they turn to the board, start writing, and ask children to copy from the board, that space is never going to be created. Children don't know how to express how they are feeling. Yeah. And I don't think it's just the teachers to blame here, right? Like it's all of
It's
us together. It's an entire ecosystem of what we are doing in the education sector. And are we even interested to look into it and work towards it beyond our own children or beyond our own nieces and nephews as well?
So let's consider a hypothetical here, Neha. I know we spoke a bit about training and, skill building in the youth, and we spoke a bit about children. Let's bring in parents as well as education stakeholders as well into this ecosystem. Paint me a picture of what in an ideal world this ecosystem might look like for a rural context in India, right? How would each of these stakeholders possibly work in tandem or together to raise one another up and to remove these roadblocks to make sure that it's a safe space for children to thrive and become resilient as, for the future?
Okay. Yeah, I think parents play a very, very important role because while a child is going to be in the classroom or in the school for 6 hours, 7 hours, they're spending the rest of the time at home. And what kind of conversations are they having? What kind of experiences are they having at home really matters a lot. So I
Mm,
think the best learning happens through everyday life, right? Like how are we learning now as adults? It's through our daily interactions. So whether it's like parents involving their children in cooking conversations, in like community service with them, doing something for family together, I think all of that really matters and is a part of education, right? Education is mostly confused with literacy and maths, unfortunately, in our country. But growing up and learning these life skills are very much a part of the education, which parents can play a huge, huge role in. If I talk about the rural space, I think parents just unfortunately don't have the time and the bandwidth to be able to spend time with their children, right? So the children only see their parents when they probably come back home for a meal or to go to sleep. And of course, that also exists in urban families where now both the parents are working. However, with daily laborers, whether it's in an urban setup or rural setup, unfortunately, they don't even have the weekends to be able to spend that time with their children, right? So that interaction, that human social space within a family, um, is non-existent for children. I don't know the last time when they actually like played with their parents and spent time with their parents, and that's not happening. And if we talk about the interaction between parents and school, we'll often see both these players blaming each other. Right. So parents are like, it's the responsibility of the school, and the school is not doing the right things for the children. And teachers often being like, we teach, we do our best in the school, but it's what happens as a follow up when children go back home. And there's not going to be any solution if both the players keep blaming each other. I think there's a need to bridge this relationship, and I think
mm,
parents and educators need to work um, as a team for every child in the classroom, in the school, in the community, to make that change happen and take responsibility. Forget like education, it is our responsibility together to keep this child safe,
mm,
to create a happy space for this child, to create that space where this child does not grow up with loneliness and consuming any random content on the phone. It's everybody's responsibility. And then, of course, certainly everyone's responsibility to educate the child as well. I mean, who is sitting with the child and even asking that what are their interests? What do they really want to do? Like, pehle padna likhna seekh lo, and then we will talk about these things.
mm,
I think that's what my mother did very differently with me, and that's what I see a lot of parents doing very differently with their children very early on, is
mm,
discussions, conversations that, what do you really like? Let me open the world to you through exposure, through giving you different opportunities, and then you pick and tell me what are you really feeling passionate about and you want to follow.
mm,
Unfortunately, teaching and learning in the school has become so much about here's the course curriculum. And first is that the child has to fit that course and curriculum. They need to be able to master that course and curriculum and show their proficiency in that through an exam, through a project or whatever it is. And then we will talk about what the child is interested in, right? I think it should be the opposite. The curriculum
mm,
and course should be designed based on what the child wants to explore and the what the child is passionate about.
mm,
And I think it can't happen unless and until parents give that liberty and trust to the teacher that I know who I've given this responsibility to in the school. If they keep holding teachers accountable for finishing the course curriculum and why haven't you given homework today? And why hasn't my child written a word in the notebook today? And that means you are not teaching. Then the teacher is going to feel very limited to do the
Mm.
observations and explore things in the classroom, right? So there's a lot of trust required in this entire relationship between teacher and parent and the school system. I think that really matters a lot.
No, what I'm hearing is like, I feel like we need to put all of these players in a meeting hall or like a town hall and get them to start talking to each other,
Yeah,
like like adults, and stop infantilizing them and stop treating them like, if you perform better, we give you a candy, that sort of a thing. So,
totally. Yeah. And there are bodies that exist for this, right? So every school is supposed to have a school management committee by the government law. And this committee consists of parents, of teachers, of school leader, a local MLA. So the idea and vision of forming it is let's bring all the key stakeholders together.
together, yeah.
We also have a child, by the way. So there should be student voice also into making decisions
Mm,
what happens in the school. But
mm,
unfortunately, in implementation, in a lot of schools, it just becomes about a tick mark that did this committee come together to chat. But the
yeah.
content of that chat, nobody knows about. Nobody knows are they having a discussion or not, right? So in
It's a bureaucratic
structure, it's
check mark.
happening. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I know, Neha, you've mentioned content that kids are consuming in one of your responses, and which leads me to the next part where I want to talk a bit about technology. Has technology in any form, especially through smartphones, through educational apps, penetrated in rural India and through it in these schools? Like, do you see kids and parents often using technology as part of the education or as part of a way to escape education?
I like the second part of it, escaping education. It's heartbreaking. I think as much as technology should have been an enabler, it's unfortunately just become a distraction for children, for youth in the community. It's become a supplement for those conversations that the parent and child should have ideally been having, even if they only get those 1 or 2 hours of having a meal with the child. I
Mm,
wish that time was not used for, okay, let's put on the phone or let's put on the TV so that the child will eat their food, but was actually spent as a time where the parent and child interacts with each other. So, yeah, I mean, like there are through government policies, there are smart boards being installed in every school that they can reach. I've seen it in some of the remotest and most rural villages as well. But unfortunately,
what are smart boards? Sorry.
okay, so smart board is like digital board which is connected to the internet where the teacher can play videos. They don't need a projector or anything. So the TV has all the it's like a television that has all technology instilled in it to make it a multimedia classroom for children, and it also
Okay.
works as a whiteboard at the same time, right? So the teacher can use it either ways. Unfortunately, in most schools it's become a replacement for a blackboard.
Mm,
The teacher will do exactly what they do on a blackboard on the smart board. And I don't know if they are to blame because I'm not sure if they know exactly how to use this technology as well, right? Or it's become a replacement in a way that the teacher will play a video and then step out of the classroom for half an hour with
mm,
no like debriefing of that entire virtual experience that would ideally make that video
mm.
more meaningful for the children. Yeah, that's what's happening in the schools right now with technology. And I mean, if I also go to areas where there is no internet and there's no electricity, so there I think there's no scope of even exploring some of these opportunities until we first fix the infrastructure for electricity, whether it's through solar or anything else that we want to consider. So that's one. And I think the second is seeing youth who are unemployed after finishing their college or school, just sitting around in the villages or in the slums and watching reels, meaningless reels and videos all day, whereas there could be so much that they could explore through that technology. But yeah, I think it's just become a replacement, a support system in a wrong way for all the stakeholders. And children are at risk. Children don't know what exactly they should be consuming, and they are left unmonitored most of the times to see the content, right? And probably the audience may belong to a background where there's a lot of security and systems and child locks that may be used on the technology, but there is a huge population of parents who are either illiterate or not that tech savvy, who don't know how to do this, but have already handed a gadget in the hands of the child. So that's, I think, technology is acting more like a challenge than being a support system at this point of time, with even administrative system just becoming more strict and strict for the teachers, right? So now, instead of filling registers and making documents and maintaining files, everything has to be uploaded on
Hmm.
portals, which is a great way to digitize and have all the data streamlined and in one place. But it's becoming just more administrative work for teachers, for officers, government officers as well, which takes them away from the work that they should be doing. I mean, I've seen teachers going and standing under a tree far outside of school just so that they're able to upload those documents in time.
My God.
There will be some or the other action that they're scared of, some of or the other action being taken on them, right? So there's so much fear in the system that has also been instilled because of technology at this point of time. And of course, like, teachers feel like their job is at risk. Of course, everyone in every sector is feeling like we don't know what the job market is going to look like in the future. But having said that, no technology can replace the empathy, the instinct, the love and care that a teacher can bring in the classroom, and how a teacher can customize the needs of a classroom as well, unless and until we make, like, our teaching education systems for on technology or online technology very competent to be able to customize that learning content for each child. It can certainly become an enabler. It can
Hmm.
help a lot with a lot of universal design of learning. It can help a lot with making classrooms more inclusive for children with disability or children who are far beyond their classroom and can explore beyond what the course curriculum is, but only if it is used in the right way.
Yeah. I And you're so right in saying that, like, that empathy angle, the ability to have that human connection, that personalization can only be brought about by another human, another teacher who feels for you, who understands you, who can take that feedback and go and make something out of it. I almost want to say that, in some of these countries, what's that called? It's mandatory to serve in army when you come of age almost, right? Like, it should be made mandatory to be a teaching volunteer for some years of your life at the very least.
I love
Not
that.
just so you have the ability to go out there and really experience what teaching feels like, but to be able to, as a youth as well, build the foundation of empathy and connections. Because in a world that's going to be filled with technology, filled with social media, real connections are becoming more and more difficult and distant, right? So I remember even from my own time working with a nonprofit, it empowered me to not only build my own confidence, public speaking, be able to form real human connections, but also really understand things that matter to me, right? Because when you're young, you're ambitious, you want to do so many things and you really don't have the clarity about what you want to do, end up doing in your life, right? So we must make teaching mandatory for certain ages.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah. I think it's not just because it's needed in the community, but I think I have learned so much and built so many skills through teaching that it's also something that's going to help one's own professional development and grooming overall, and personal development as well, right? So we in Teach for India believe that teaching builds leadership. So
Mhm,
everything that a teacher is doing in the classroom is actually building them as a leader, right?
mhm.
And we often do this exercise where we compare the qualities of a teacher and a leader, and they turn out to be the same through these activities
Wow.
across contexts, right? I've tried this in rural India, in urban parts of India. So yeah, I think teaching is definitely something that's going to help with community service, like enhance what we're able to do in the education system for our children, but at the same time it's going to be equally rewarding for youth to develop the right skills.
And like you mentioned, teaching is not just about curriculum or education. You can teach so many different things. You can connect with children, with youth by being that role model, right? And that's perhaps one way to fill that void, that gap that people feel that we don't have friends anymore, we don't have community or networks anymore, right? So yeah, Nia, this has been such a great conversation. Before we inch towards the end of this episode, I want to understand from you. Like, you've met so many change makers and children from across the country in your profession. I feel like at one point you also mentioned you feel far more connected to India and far more rooted to your country than ever before. So tell us, like, uh, a story or an example that stood out to you throughout your career and why it made you feel the way it does.
Absolutely. So I think this was my first ever experience in Kargil, which is the northernmost like part of the country, which is surrounded by mountains. And there was particularly this one hamlet, I won't even call it a village, a tiny settlement which is very close to the glacier. So it gets
Mhm.
so cold that in the winters the temperature reaches like negative 35 degrees Celsius for, so it gets really cold over there. In the region of Leh, Ladakh, Kargil, schools are shut for about 5 to 6 months every year because
Hmm.
of how cold it gets.
Hmm.
And I went to one of these hamlets with the NGO partner that's working with us there, Zamba. They were running like winter community center because the schools were shut down. So for half a part of the year, the fellows teach in the school when the schools are open. And then because they are local youth from the villages themselves, they are able to continue the learning even when schools are shut because they stay in the village. Like traveling in the winter and all of those are not challenges for them, which may be for
Mhm.
probably some of the teachers who have to travel from far and reach these villages in like when there's snow and all of that, right? So I saw like 5, 6 years old kids walking in bitter cold and still making it to that community center, right? Like the children have both the resilience, of course, because they stay in such harsh conditions. I mean, it's not like winter, it's winter, so we're going to stop living, right? We are still living, and education and school is very much a part of living for a child. It is that environment where they are learning. So why keep schools shut for 5 to 6 months when children are doing everything else in their life in these months as well? So they were making it to school, to the community center, and they were so happy to be there and to be learning there. So there was a local teacher teaching them, children coming from all across, learning the pedagogy in this hamlet that was being used, which Zamba specializes in, is project based learning. So they don't like learn things from the textbook, but actually design projects within their community. They follow up an entire model where they understand a challenge and then they work towards a solution and then go and share with the village what solution they have created through this project. And the conceptual understanding of these children, their command on language, uh, something that took me by surprise. Like I wasn't expecting that to happen in this space, especially like mastery over English in such a remote context was difficult, but it's because this local youth who was teaching them was proficient, and she is delivering, like she's bringing those skills to educate the next generation, right? And lastly, when we spoke about like the stakeholders working together, or Zamba has worked very closely on building village education committees. So this is a group of stakeholders who work for quality education for their village. So they have helped in building this community center. They are ensuring that children are making it to the center and providing any support that the local youth may require to be able to teach in that classroom and bring resources there, right? So I just saw like a beautiful community of people from the local region working together and that actually translating into children feeling happy, learning what's relevant, and also being ready to take on what's coming next for them in their future, right? So really preparing them for the present and the future together. And I mean, I have a lot of such stories in my book that I'm writing, which I hope to release soon. So yeah, but this was one of the stories that stays with me and makes me believe in the work that we are doing at Teach for India and TFIX.
That is so beautiful. And that's again the theme, right? Resilience. If you model resilience, if you show that something is possible, children absolutely love it and they learn the same thing because they're so adaptive. They are so capable. And the only ones telling them that not sky, rather Earth is the limit is us adults, right? So teaching them to really be independent and aim for higher things in life is something that they're always eager to listen to, right? If our listeners can take something away from this podcast, what would it be? We have a very global audience. Like I speak to people from the US, from UK, people who are working on amazing tech innovations to help improve lives of children, but also on the other side, people who are advocating for screen-free parenting and people from all different walks of life, right? So, what would that one thing be our listeners should take away from you?
I think beyond everything that we are doing in NGOs and as education system, I think the smallest step begins in our own relationships and with ourselves as well, right? Like I would like for each one of us to take an opportunity after listening to this to sit and think what really success means to you in your life, right? Is it something that was provided to you or you were conditioned to believe in? Or is it something that you truly believe in, right? Like my notions of success are very, very different from what the rest of my friends or my peers believe in, right? Whether it's how much money should I be making and that would make me successful, or what I should be doing at different milestones of my life, because our thinking resonates and reflects on what we pass on to the next generation. And currently, the criteria of success that we are holding as a society is doing more damage to the children than it's doing good to them, right? They are being pushed to be competitive, to master the things that are so alien to them, whether it's a language or whether it's content. So, can we just pause to think that what does true happiness, what does true success really mean? And learn from not just the so called developed countries, but also learn from countries that are called the happiest, right? And probably that's where you will start to see the change in what you want to do differently with your children, with your students, or whoever's in your locus of control, young and old.
That is so beautiful. That is such a wonderful way to end the episode, Neha. What is your criteria of success and what should we learn about from countries that rank the highest in happiness? There's a reason why they do so. So, Neha, thank you once again so much. For anybody who's curious about what Teach for India does, I will be sharing the link in the bio description. Check them out. And Neha, all the very best for the book that you're writing. We hope to see that and read that soon as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deepa, for this opportunity. And thanks everyone for listening.